to be here today to talk with everybody. George and Jim and I have been talking about this more or less as a fireside chat, and until someone solves the IoT use case of IoT fireside, we'll just have to let this suffice. I just want to thank you guys for being here today. And with our topic as it's been introduced, there's been a lot of hype around the Internet of Things, and there's been a lot of discussion about how it's coming along. Gartner has a thing called the Hype Cycle, and the IoT features prominently on that. Jim, what do you think about where IoT is on the Hype Cycle?
I think they're overhyping the Hype Cycle for IoT. I think that we're actually not nearly as far along as they have. It really depends on who you speak to, of where they actually think we are. Some think we're actually already into the trough of disillusionment. But the thing it's important to remember about the Hype Cycle and that methodologies is they're always streaming. When IoT is this huge term to talk about the evolution of technology. So the Hype Cycle just kind of has all these little peel-offs of all the different technology that it goes up, and they put IoT in this point within there, and it's really not that way. It's actually the technologies are evolving. So connected lighting is a different animal than connected environment. It's a different animal than connected entertainment. So I think that the Hype Cycle itself and the numbers that are being projected, because the numbers are so large, I believe that IoT as a whole is in the very, very beginning of the curve as an entire kind of macro view.
George, do you have a sense of how far along, or which IoT use cases, or which products are furthest along that Hype Cycle?
I mean, I think what Jim said is that IoT is a very broadly used term, and different products are in totally different places on this Hype Cycle. But in general, for the kind of things that we have inside our homes and let us interact with products in a new way, I agree we're very early days. It's all about creating the awareness that these products even exist, and make people think about these products in a totally different way to solve a different problem than they've solved previously. And I think a few products are further along than others. I think thermostats, lighting are some of the front runners, but still, it's very, very early days. Awareness just isn't there yet.
Okay. What do you think are the best candidates for the fastest adoption? We talk about in the consumer context. There's personal use. There's use as bringing devices or bringing objects to work, and there's use in education and so on. Do you have any early candidates, Jim? For
So essentially, you're asking what's the killer app for IoT. If anybody knows that, please let us know. But the early applications are the traditional solving the problems to save energy, save money, save time. Right, and we were seeing a lot of energy savings because of the shift from one type of bulb to a more energy conservative bulb. We're seeing those being changed out. Say, oh, that's an opportunity to actually make that upgrade to the Philips Hue light bulb, for example. That seems like a natural opportunity. One of the other ones I think is interesting and compelling is one that actually creates comfort and saves money, and that's the environmental control. Right, Nest has done a really wonderful job of positioning a product or a family of products that actually make your home more of a home.
Fantastic. One of the frustrations I have, George, is this idea that I have a Kickstarter problem, and I also have a problem every time I go and see some new system or device. I really want to go and acquire it, and I have a ton of individual devices that I'm managing on a regular basis. Is this our future, or is something else required?
So, I mean, there's an enormous explosion of devices that have come in the last years. I mean, if we look 3 or 4 years ago, it was a completely different landscape than it is now. Now it seems every day new connected products are being connected, and connectivity is being shoehorned into yet another kind of product. And it does create this fragmented experience. Now, that's a problem if you have many connected products inside your home, but it's not necessarily the biggest problem we have today, because for me, the biggest problem we have today is making people understand value of these solutions. They should individually add value. And if you are someone who happens to have already found all of these different pockets of value they can add to their home, then you have this smart home problem. And then there are a lot of initiatives, too many initiatives for them all to succeed, where they're building platforms to make these products work together. And at the moment, there are a lot of those platforms as well. And I think, unfortunately, that is going to be the situation for the next few years. There will be a consolidation. But in the meantime, I'd urge everyone to be happy with all of these great products that are out there that solve real problems. Most people don't have a smart home problem yet. They have normal problems which are solved by products.
Jim, what are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree. I think that the real challenge we have with IoT is like any new technology is the education. If we want to sell this to the mass market, we have to educate the mass market. And the technology, as I showed in the presentation, it's a really confusing story. It's not even a story. It's tech specs. It's text talk. We need to be able to actually turn these stories into something that's compelling for consumers. I think that that's one of our challenges, educating the consumer.
Who should be hiring the CTO of the home? Jim was talking about the idea that today people are often a CIO.
Right. I'll clarify that actually the CTO should be the devices themselves.
Okay.
But the CEO of your life, that should be you.
Do you agree, George?
Sure. I mean, it's always important that
That's a
you
loaded
stay
question.
in control of your home. But I mean, I think one of the important things is that you don't necessarily need one CTO in your home. And I think this is something which I feel quite strongly about is one platform for your home is never going to be the expert in doing the right thing all of the time. There are many companies which have different specializations, many devices which have different specializations, and also they need to be able to act independently to know how to do the right thing. I mean, we make a lighting system that plugs into many of these smart home platforms, but we don't want to just be a device which is controlled. We want to be a device which does the right thing in the context of the home. If there is a fire in your home, we are the company that has the knowledge to know that you should set your lights to red because it scatters less of the smoke particles. And there's many examples of that where we need to trust in the expertise of different products, different actors inside the home to make sure it reacts in the best possible way to the context.
That's right. How do you feel about that, Jim? You're nodding along.
Well, I think that, so the way I look at things is from an architectural perspective is just building blocks. And there needs to be, the first technology you have to have is communication. So the networks should all, be managed by network management. And that should, at this point, be, for the most part, automatic. And then as you build on top, you get into that application layer. And that's where your lighting and that's where your security and your comfort and all those things come together. And yes, they have their own intelligence, and the devices within them have their own intelligence to know if there's a fire, we should be red. If there's discomfort, then we should turn on the heat. If somebody is away, we should save energy. I think that's the natural kind of, if you call that the CTO, that rule setting and rule management is specific to those devices. But I also think there needs to be a commonality between them by translator or however, so that these different things can share that information, because the light doesn't know there's a fire. It has to be told that there's a fire. And I think that's the kind of the key. But the challenge that this brings is this idea that, it's a connected home. When you think about a connected home, that ridiculous Jetsons analogy comes up, and people think, I can't just get a light bulb. That's not a connected home. I've got to have everything connected. And for the very few, that's actually a reality. And it's actually a very complex reality for people who've adopted it up till now. As we move forward, I think this opportunity is going to be more piecemeal, more individual CTO type of technology to solve individual problems.
And I think to add on that, there's a lot of focus and hype around this idea of a smart home where everything is talking to everything else, and that's not the problem that we have today. I mean, you're solving a problem for a fraction of a percent of people who've bought a product, and then another fraction of that who've bought multiple of these products. And we should be looking at solving more down-to-earth problems, which can be solved by one or two products working in tandem. That said, I mean, these products are part of your home. A light bulb is something you install and you leave there for the next 15 years. So this is the next 2 or 3 years. If we look further down the line, yes, everything has to be able to talk to everything else. And that's why it's super important that these products are made with an open mindset. They have to be open to receiving instructions, commands, information from others, and they also need to be upgradable, future-proof, because the reality is the way in which these products talk to each other, the solution hasn't been invented, hasn't been decided on, hasn't been standardized yet, and that doesn't mean we should wait for it to come along. It means we should enjoy the value these products can bring in smaller communities in the meantime, but always be prepared to hook in to these bigger overarching schemes, architectures when they come along.
So Jim and I have talked about this before, this idea that when we have devices, we hire them to do specific jobs. And George, you just alluded to the fact that, or you spoke directly to the fact that right now people, in many cases, the early adopters are a small group of highly engaged people who have the time to solve problems and hire those devices to do quite complex jobs. What are your thoughts, Jim? I'll ask you first. What are your thoughts in terms of what are the jobs to be done that are most likely to break out and become really mainstream?
Again, the killer app question. I think
I'll keep asking until you tell us which one it is.
So I'll actually share with, I was on the machine stage earlier talking to Oracle, and basically the idea is this idea of calling it Internet of Things is actually the wrong focus. IoT is a disservice for many reasons, but most importantly, it's a disservice because it's all about you. So it should be the IOU. It's about the thing. So the killer app is you. And I think that that's where the breakouts are going to come, the things that actually revolve around me, whether I'm at work, play, sleep, whatever I'm doing, and then can seamlessly move from environment to environment. And we see that, right, with our mobile devices, when we can start to take our work and it automatically goes from screen to screen to screen, Netflix moves from screen to screen to screen, whatever that technology is, when it revolves around me, that's the killer app.
Great. And I liked your analogy. It's very interesting that we're using an analogy from a recently emerged digital phenomenon, this idea that our information follows us around seamlessly, like in the case of Netflix, and interesting that would be applied to something like this. George, what are your thoughts on that topic? What jobs to be done do you think are going to have the biggest chance of breaking out?
So, I mean, I think there's a few of the easiest to understand, the easiest to appreciate and consume ideas, which will get traction first, just because they're very easy to understand and the benefit they bring is very familiar. I mean, I think energy is one which is already driving some of the the biggest install bases of products at the moment, because your utility comes to you and says, here is a cool product, we will give it to you and you'll have to pay less money every month. Okay, that's not a very hard thing to sell, and I think that is already driving quite a lot, but it's not necessarily the ones that really transform how you're using your home. It's something you install and you forget about it and you just get a lower monthly bill. Great. Is this really the future vision, the Internet of Things that we were talking about? It is. It's just, there's a lot of things in here which are not these big, sexy, everything, talking to everything else use cases. Other things are about changing things in the fabric of your home and just making them support you better inside your home. And I think lighting is a nice example there. Lighting is one of the only products that's actually in every single room of your house. There's nothing you do in your home which isn't underneath lighting. But we have this deeply ingrained perception that all it does is give light. All it does is be on and off. And there's a huge amount more value that it can actually add towards the home, but people have to realize and want that, and it has to be easy enough for people to appreciate that. They don't want another thing to control. They just want to live better. They want to have their home be more beautiful, more flexible. They want to spend less money on their energy bill every month. People have much more down-to-earth needs than a lot of the ones which people focus on in the hype around the IoT.
Yeah.
So moving from the topic of what's going to potentially cause things to break out to the sort of trailing indicator question, Jim, what's your sense of what the big unsolved problems in IoT are, whether they're technology or societal or economic? How would you start addressing that?
So now you're asking me what's wrong with the world. Awesome.
We're going to do hunger.
Let's stay within the technology.
Fresh water.
Water, absolutely. Well, Maslow's pyramid, right? What's keeping people from feeling secure? What's feeling a domicile or a home is not their castle? What's preventing that? I think that's kind of the basis. But from an unsolved technology perspective, Wi-Fi still has challenges, right? I think that the first thing we have to do as we get into this is we have to fortify the communication underneath it. It's not as seamless as it should be. I have the Google On Hub, and it's a really great product to help solve that problem of give me the range and give me the reliability, because they recognize and they understand, we can't do anything if we can't get the data. And to get the data, and again, it's my impression that the data is actually the big oil. That is the big opportunity, and everything else is a mining operation. Right? All this IoT devices that everybody's spinning up in whatever industry, it's all to mine for the data. And I think that from that perspective, that we just have to keep in mind that the big problem is if we can't get the data, we can't use the data. And then privacy is another thing, but that's a different topic.
So I don't entirely agree. So in the end, there's a lot of technologies out there.
Yeah.
And actually, for most of these connectivity problems, how device A talks to device B, talks to you, talks to the cloud, there are technology solutions that are out there. And they also have good interoperability. I mean, in the end, I always refer to the fact that, we have the internet. We have millions, billions of peer-to-peer connected devices talking over the internet, and they are able to talk to each other. There's standardization to a certain level, not all the way, but still, we can build these services which mash them together and create new use cases out of that. So the technologies are there. Different people are using different technologies and creating silos, which is in some cases a problem. But as long as everything connects back towards the internet, connects back to your local network, and you are using decent router technology inside your home, which exists, but not everyone is using, you can create these great use cases. For me, what's more missing is that as you get more and more products inside your home, which, again, let me stress, this is the problem of tomorrow, not today, it becomes overwhelming what you have to interact with and what knows what about what. Mm-hmm. It gets really confusing, and there needs to be some steps made. And here I think really standardization and teaming up between competitors and people who work together needs to happen, is that you do need one overview, one way of saying, okay, this is the information that this device has about that. Yes, I'm okay with them doing it, and make that easy and understandable, because today, the fact that this is in all these silos is so confusing that people either have to accept that they won't understand, or they have to not use it. And this is a problem I think really needs to be solved before we can get to this more futuristic smart home idea where everything can talk to everything and just support what you're doing in the home.
So I'm going to ask the next question is about security, and I'm going to ask it in what I hope is a new way. There's been a lot of discussion in the press these days about whether or not the digital devices in our lives are doing the things we think they're doing, or potentially telling us what we think they should be telling us, whether they're automotive or whether it's cameras that look like they're off but they're on, et cetera. Jim, what are your thoughts about that problem, and what are some approaches you think might be good for trying to crack that nut?
So from a security perspective, I think one of the biggest risks of IoT in general is the risk that we have in the cloud. And they always talk about the threat analysis and the rogue operator scenario. You have a disgruntled employee, he's behind the firewall, he goes out and takes data and he sells it to somebody. That never happens, right? Most of the failures we see are because of rogue operators, because of some sort of a human deciding to take a bad course of action. Now, that rogue operator scenario is amplified in IoT because the ghost is in the machine. It's the machine that could be the rogue operator. In the case of the Jeep, the reason they were take that Jeep Cherokee and override it is because they were able to load in their own code. So imagine another device that's on this network of things that can talk together, and it's written and programmed badly, and I can put, a brand new operating system on there that just watch every packet in the house, and I can control anything I want. That is a huge challenge from a security perspective, because that rogue operator is anywhere, everywhere, and anything.
So, I mean, security is something that everyone should be concerned about and worried about, because you are basically inviting these products inside your home. And all of the companies which are making these products have a responsibility not just for their own product, but actually for the whole industry, to take this extraordinarily seriously. It doesn't take many of these products to do something wrong, and in the end, the technology is there to solve it. It's all about bad implementations, rogue operators, as you put it, which are then giving access to the home. And I mean,
right.
It's not about giving access to the device. And in the worst case, it gives access to the home. So there's really this responsibility for all these companies to do everything possible to secure and lock down these devices, so that we don't have these bad examples, because it will harm the industry. And I think most people are doing that. And like I said, the technology is there. It's just a case of implementing it properly. So I think that's really something that everyone needs to focus on. But next to that, I think there is an unsolved problem, which is how to make it transparent to the consumer. I mean, technically, you can build the best thing in the world, but in the end, different things in your home need to be able to control these devices. And if you don't know and you don't have it clear what you are giving access to what, you also don't know if this is something which is because of a rogue operator or something you've actually let happen in your home. This kind of ghost scenario where you set up all of these rules and triggers, you don't know what's happening because it's become so complex and interrelated.
We have about 30 seconds left, so I want you guys to look in your crystal ball one more time. And I work for a design firm, so a subjective answer. Would you like the world of the IoT in your home in the future to be a bunch of furniture and things that you recognize today, with enchanted in invisible ways, or would you like the IoT to be focused on objects like the Amazon Echo, things that you can look at and touch and point that are visible? Do you have a preference?
So I would very much go the way of, your home should just be your home. It should just support you better. It should just magically know from the context what it should be doing. It should be much less about controlling your home, much more about having your home support you.
I'm going to refer back to my IOU answer. Internet of You. That means that everything that you have to support your life should follow you wherever, whenever you need it.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.